Hey, welcome back, and we're going to be moving on into talking about the Roman Empire today. Last lecture we talked about the Greeks and how what they offered in terms of foundational things, the roots of Western civilization. The Romans are actually going to build on top of that, and so um, keep in mind this is not going to be direct information that's going to be on the AP test. However, it will give us a better understanding of the classical world, the Greco-Roman world, and how that will also come back again as a model in the Renaissance, and how throughout the Middle Ages they're going to fall away from this whole grand time during the rise of the Roman Empire. Okay, so let's give a little bit of background about the Romans and how this all started. If you look in the upper right hand corner, you do see that there's this wolf thing, and you have some little baby children nursing from the she-wolf. The original story of how Rome came to be is it came from a myth that Mars, right, one of the Roman gods, he had twins, and then he left them to die. And at that point, you have this wolf that was allowing these two babies, Romulus and Remus, to survive off of the she-wolf. And then they're the two twins that selected Palatine Hill to be where Rome is going to be established as a city. That's all a myth. Is that really that important? Not really, but that's just some background information. A few things we do need to know is that the Romans are known for incorporating on top of the Greeks. So they built on top of the Greeks learning, and remember we talked about how the Greeks had this knowledge system, and so a lot of the intellectual and artistic culture that the Greeks offered, the Romans went further than that in the sense of putting some practical application of how they're actually going to run their empire. Okay, so taking that knowledge, okay, we're going to see that in 509 BC, Rome is going to be a republic, and so this is where you can see these four letters SPQR, and it stands for the Senate and People of Rome, and so they have a republic, meaning that they have elected officials as their government, and so over time, they're going to start with a republic, and that will change to an empire, and we're going to go into the details of that, because that is important a little bit. So what are they known for? What are the Romans known for? Their empire was known for organization, administration, their system of political government, the laws that they have made, and even just having imperial armies, right? Really effective armies. And so these are some of the things that they're known for, and they're being praised for it, even for many years, centuries after them. One thing that I mentioned is that Rome begins as a republic. They're self-governing, right? So you have elections. Now it's not like a complete direct democracy like Athens would be as a city-state, but having even just some say politically for the citizens is a lot, right? So it's very different from having like a king rule amongst everyone. So by having a republic, what that means is that the few that are elected, right, the elected officials, they are considered the few, and then you have the many, the populace, everyone else, right? So you have the interests of the few and the interests of the many, but even still, you have more than one opinion being put in. Okay, and so you have different branches of government, kind of. You have like the smaller minority, and then you have the large majority, and they're giving their say. The thing about the republic is that it didn't always last throughout the entire rule of the Roman Empire. So when we talk about how the Roman Empire hit its height and its peak, it wasn't during the Republic. But the Republic really allowed for a foundation of understanding of how governments would work and flourish and stuff. Okay, so let me explain the difference between a mixed government versus an unmixed government. In a mixed government, right, you have different types of groups, right? So you have your Senate, right? You have your councils, you have different assemblies, and so because you have different opinions, that's how you can actually have a diverse government, right? Whereas an unmixed government is very simply like a monarchy. Okay, so a monarchy is ruled by one person, right? They are the king. Whatever they say goes, and a lot of times they have, they become into a tyrant, right? And so these tyrannies come, and so even if it's not one single person, it could be like a few people. So that's what we call an oligarchy. And in an oligarchy, few are ruling, but they're ruling with absolute power, which doesn't make it much better anyways. Okay, so the Romans started off with a republic, but later that will change to an empire because over time the government became more and more authoritarian. Okay, what that means is that as their empire grew, they were conquering more lands, and because you're trying to manage such a large empire, it gets harder if you have these small little pockets of republic, and you have like a giant republic. It's easier just to have one person, an emperor, call the shots, right? And everything under him goes, right? So you have, if you can imagine a pyramid, an emperor's at the top, and all of his officials and stuff are at the bottom, and then slowly work all the way down to citizens, and you work down all the way down to the slaves. Okay, so it's kind of like a whole pyramid structure. Okay, so in addition, what they were known for is the laws that were made. Roman laws. Okay, one example is the 12 Tables. They are explicit to describe what types of rights and laws are for Roman citizens, right? And so by having a written law, right, everyone can refer to it. It's not just like thrown up in the air and like, oh, like that's what we do around here, right? Like that's what we've always been doing for the last 200 years. Like says who, right? But having a written law, it says like, well, this is clearly the legal document, right? And so from that, a lot of constitutions are in the same way replicated in that format of having a written law. The thing about Roman law we need to know is that for the most part, these laws, they really favored the state over the individual. Are there, parts and laws of individual rights? Absolutely. But when Roman laws are established, it's really coming from written by the officials, and it's the emperor that's putting the authority behind it, right? So he is empowering. That's the executive branch, so to say. Okay. What's good about Roman law for citizens, though, is that it provides them a certain justice. So if it's written down saying that you cannot steal from this person, right? They can say, I'm a Roman citizen, I've been mistreated, this is the punishment for it. Okay, so citizenship as a Roman person is actually very valuable. All right. Okay, so let's talk about kind of the different places that the Roman Empire grew. Okay, so the Roman Empire, at its peak, as you can kind of see, it starts to begin around like 100 AD. If you can see in the, let me see if I pull this up. Okay, so if you look in this area on the map, okay, so we call it the Balkan Peninsula, and this is where you have a very diverse, ethnically groups of people. Many different cultures are crossed here in this area, and essentially, when the Roman Empire was able to conquer this area, like they had a lot of like problems and disputes, right? And so the problem was, if there is kind of like an issue with between cross cultures, how will they settle this dispute? Okay, so they'll say, well, my culture does this, my customs are doing this, and he's violating me, and so they wouldn't get along. And this is where the concept of laws of natures came about. Is that the Romans say, you know what? As the Greeks have really decided, there are natural laws out there that if we just use reason, it explains a whole lot. It explains that your culture and custom doesn't matter as much as the overarching law, because that is the universal natural law, and that's what goes. Okay, so customs is under law. Okay, and so law is going to be the standard, and that's how kind of the Romans would enforce it from that point. Okay, all right. So a few people I want to bring up. Okay, the first one is Julius Caesar, and I do not mean this guy. Okay, this is Caesar's Pizza, which I'm pretty sure does not exist anymore, but it used to be in business when I was a kid. We're talking about Julius Caesar, and he was a great ruler, okay? And so he was a proved commander in battle, and one just crazy story was that he was, you don't have to write this down, he was kidnapped by Mediterranean pirates, and he was there in captivity for over a month, and then when he was finally released, he was able to make fun and taunt his captors, and then he was going to raise his own navy and go back to the pirates, take back his ransom that they had paid for him, right? And then he crucified all of them, right? So he's pretty crazy, right? He's a legit leader, and through him, okay, we see that the Roman Republic is this in the time of transition to be more of an absolute monarchy. Okay, so he's kind of like the model of this, and the reason why the Republic allowed Julius Caesar to do so is because he really protected the Romans from the Germanic barbarians. So there are Germanic barbarians that want to sack Rome, right? They want to take over Rome because it's an empire, the main city, and they're all surrounding kind of in this northern Europe area, okay? So the amazing thing about Julius Caesar that we have to understand how he contributed is essentially he's known as a great emperor, okay? He was the one who actually brought so many different territories, France, Switzerland, Belgium, 800 total cities under his military rule, and so he's a great military leader, and so we see that because of the establishment, right, and so that Rome would be a strong empire for many centuries under his rule, that the classical world, the Greco-Roman world, all those values and ideas and the system of organization and administration, that would stick. That would stick, okay? If you have heard the phrase before, I saw, I conquered, Veni, Vidi, Vici, that comes from Julius Caesar, and eventually you'll have many other Caesars, right, that come after him, right? So Caesar's Pizza is just the general guy. Augustus Caesar is the next Caesar that comes after him. And why do we actually need to know these Caesars at all? It's because in AP Euro, later on, there's going to be many other absolute rulers. And their goal is to be like an emperor, as great as Julius Caesar, as Augustus Caesar, and all the other Caesars, because they had very vast empires that were very powerful, and like they were well known. They were glorified and worshipped. Okay, so Augustus Caesar is added to Julius Caesar's expansion of the Roman world, and so what's a really important time is the Pax Romana. The Pax Romana was 200 years of peace. So we talked about how barbarians want to come in and take over Rome, and at the same time you have the Roman Empire expanding, and that's because they have military conquest. But Pax Romana was a time where not are they trying to always fight, but it's a time of peace, lasting peace for 200 years. Okay, this means that if you're not fighting, you have stability in your civilization, and when you have stability, okay, you're allowing for the general public, for your citizens, to really develop an intellectual and cultural center and different developments that really push your civilization forward. Okay, if your country is totally unstable and under war the whole time, are people even thinking about their ideas and developing them? Absolutely not. Right? They don't have the time. All they're thinking about is survival. Right? But if they know peace is here, then that's what they is allowing them to just to thrive, okay, intellectually. All right, so Caesar just basically stands for emperor, okay, and so in German it's Kaiser, in Russian it's Tsar, and in Arabic it's Caesar. And so here you can see that we're going to be using these terms throughout AP Euro, and they're all referring back to the greatness of the Roman Empire. Okay, so how great was it? If we look kind of just at this map generally, this is just under the two emperors that we just talked about. Okay, some of the locations, we go all the way from Spain to as far as France, and this is just under these two emperors. This is not the most extent. Okay, but if you can see that if Rome is conquering this area and Latin is their main language, you can say that, oh yeah, that's right? The Romance languages was influenced by Latin. Right, and so France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Romania, these areas are all Romance influenced languages. Okay, so Rome being the center right there in the middle of Italy, it was the circle of lands, and so never in ancient history had so many people been governed from a single center. You've had even the Egyptian Empire and stuff, but that's still just in that general area. But if you look at just from one center spreading outward, it's about like 200 miles every single way. Okay, so what we're going to see is that cities are going to pop up throughout the Roman Empire, and this is where you're going to have a lot of slave labor and a lot of different trading and commerce and stuff. Okay, let me show you some pictures of my trip to Rome this summer. So at the bottom picture, we have the Roman Forum. This is This is the ruins of it. Okay, so it doesn't exist because it's been thousands of years now, but the ruins are still there, and I went to see a lot of ruins, and the ruins show that this was the public square before, where they all met, and on top you can see the Colosseum a little bit, right, and the arch, and you see a statue of one of the Caesars. I don't know which one it is. Okay, but this is just throughout Rome, and they've tried to really keep their ancient antiquity of cultural artifacts. Okay, and so this is a reconstruction of what the Roman Forum and public square looked like. We talked about how the Greeks, right, they met in the marketplace, and the Romans actually are going to build off of that, and have like city centers. Like this is the kind of like the downtown, right? This is the public square where everyone's meeting and talking, and this is where you're buying and selling food, and everything happens in the public square. Okay, where you go to worship, same thing. If we talk about the height of the Roman Empire, this is the first part of how far it got. I think it got a little bit more in about 230 A.D. But as it grew so big, it was amazing, right? But the problem is, the bigger it gets, right, the harder it is to manage. And even though the Romans had a great administrative system, right, a way to manage everything, it became too corrupt, right? It was too hard to enforce everything throughout, and so what rises to its greatness will also fall. Okay, I'll say it one more time. What rises to its greatness will also fall, and we're going to see this trend throughout AP Europe throughout the centuries. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So if you look at as far as north as half of Great Britain too, okay, and as far east into Mesopotamia and in the Middle East. All right, so I mentioned how the Roman Empire was an empire of cities. Now, the Roman cities themselves, they represented the power of the state, because within each city, you're seeing how the emperor's decisions are being carried out in all the cities. Now, what if you live outside of the city? It's not as enforced, but within a city, right, there is the government there, there is soldiers there, the army is there, it's being enforced. Okay, and so if you are there, that means that as a Roman citizen, you have certain privileges under Roman law. For example, if you're a Roman citizen, right, you can vote, you can run for public office, you can own property, you can marry. Okay, certain people can only marry certain people. You can sue, you can go to trial. You are not allowed to be tortured for no reason, right? And you cannot be crucified unless you're a traitor. Okay, so Rome, Carthage, and Alexandria are the top three cities. Carthage is off of the coast of North Africa in Tunisia, and Alexandria is the second largest city in Egypt. Okay, and so if you look, right, Rome actually has a lot of the coastal lands throughout the Mediterranean, which is great for trade, right? We talked about how a lot of trade routes are happening through the Mediterranean, and the Roman Empire, according to this map, right, they're clearly in power and control of that. All right, there is a saying. If you look at this map here, it's pointing to all of the different trade routes, and especially all the roads. And so there's a saying that goes, all roads lead to Rome. Okay, Rome being the center, right? And the thing about the Roman Empire is that they were known to be very skilled in making roads. Okay, and so they are the greatest road builders of ancient time. Now, why do roads matter? Well, I mean, if you think about it, okay, the roads that we drive on, on our streets, okay, those are paved roads. And so when you have established roads, right, you don't have like brush in the way, you don't have trees and rocks and different, elements, physical elements that are in the way, but it's a very easy way to provide transportation. So back then with chariots and roads, it was very quick and it was faster rather than going through a lot of like nature and stuff. Okay, so let me show you a picture here, and exactly what you're thinking, right? The roads there are all cobblestones. Okay, made you think. All right, so as much as you guys are laughing at this, Asian dad taking a picture so funnily, I think honestly, if you take a picture of yourself, it's the same way, right? So how they actually build these roads is pretty amazing. They have like multiple layers. They have large flat stones that are about a foot to 2 feet thick, and they have smaller stones, and they put gravel in, and they put all these different they put lava in there, and the whole process of building roads was very tedious. Okay, however, they actually allowed improved transportation. Okay, so just to give you an idea of how cobblestones were back then. We don't really have cobblestones, right? If anything, you've seen brick roads. That's maybe like in Boston or something like that. But in an ancient culture, right, cobblestones are actually very uneven, right? Very different from cement that is paved now. So let's take a look at this video at the Colosseum. Okay, it was very short, but if you could just pay attention to just on the floor, the cobblestones are weird sizes. Okay, but you know, having roads in general was very beneficial to the empire. Okay, so what else are the Romans known for? They're known for building very impressive buildings, right? And so here you have the Colosseum. You guys seen Gladiator, right? Like it's for the purpose of entertainment, right? For the slaughter of man, and such a great giant building, right? They would also build aqueducts, which basically how they can transport water, okay, to cities from water sources, and they had other amenities that previous other civilizations and villages would not even have, right? It's the ability to have these types of infrastructures and having canals and even sewage drainers and stuff, okay? That was very advanced back then, and it is right now. We still use those types of things, and they had it thousands of years ago, okay? So here's some images when I was in Ephesus, okay? So Ephesus is in Turkey, and as you can see, it's still like very ancient with a lot of the limestone and stuff, but because, like I told you, the cultural life was able to be stable enough, right? You can see like the detail in the flooring, the mosaic flooring, and you have a giant, great amphitheater, right, in Ephesus, and that's where, right, you see plays, right? You hear speeches, oration, right? And so Ephesus was a very grand city. I don't need to go into detail, but it had a population of about 250,000 people in that city. And if you see in the bottom picture here, okay, these are actually public toilets. Okay, and so back then, they didn't really have stalls, but the fact that you actually have a sewage system, right, in ancient times, that's pretty amazing. You're not just going out in the woods, right? Okay, this is in Pompeii. You guys remember Mount Vesuvius? It blew up. It's kind of in the back there, that little hill thing. This is Pompeii and its excavation. This is once again the cobblestones, and you know, kind of like how those Roman cities in the Roman Empire was established, even though this is in Naples, okay, close to Naples. All right, let's talk a little bit about what has the Roman Empire influenced thus far. Well, the Roman Republic was a great model for many other constitutions, including our own, the United States. And so, as a model to us, it was no accident that our government was influenced by the Roman Republic, right? Our founding fathers were very steeped in the classics. They really followed and understood government in that sense. So a lot of the vocabulary that we use in politics, in government, right, comes from a lot of Latin roots. And so the words republic, constitution, president, Congress, representative, executive, all these things that you've heard, right, in 8th grade and stuff, 9th grade, all these words, lawyer words, ad hoc, de facto, ex post facto, right, they're all Latin roots, and they relate to a lot of the administration and organization of government by the Roman Republic, okay? If you look at the architecture, right, very much looking like the Roman ruins I was showing you. Here you have this is the Washington Monument, and it's in the style of an obelisk, right? But if you remember too, the Roman Republic also conquered parts of Egypt, and so they would take these obelisks back to Rome, and they would establish that, right, as a sign of they were able to conquer it. Okay, so here once again, very much Roman style architecture, very much based upon Ionian Greek, right? So the Greeks started, and then the Romans came after centuries later. Okay, and now like it's shaped our country in the Western world. Okay, so America, here you have George Washington, and he's leaning on this pole thing. This pole thing is called a fasces, and what it is really just a bundle of sticks. Okay, and so what it represents is strength through unity. So during the Roman Republic, there would be times where soldiers would be carrying these fasces, and it means that, if you have one single rod, wooden rod, right, it can be snapped in half. But a bundle together, that's going to break you. You're not going to break it, okay? And so just imagining that the Roman Republic believed in unity and fighting together. Okay, and so here you have Abe Lincoln, and if you can tell too, okay, here you have by his arm. I didn't notice that until recently, but yeah, you have fascists there too. Okay, so that's kind of Roman Republic. Keep in mind kind of their contributions to the overall makeup of what Western civilization is now today. Okay.